We acknowledge that each of us are in a different starting point with regards to having a supplier diversity plan. For some of us, this is brand new. For others, they've been working with diverse suppliers for years. And for the rest of us, maybe we're somewhere in between. Thus, we kick off the programming today with an introduction, offering you steps that you can start taking right now. The programming will continue in July with a 4-part series designed to help your company build or refresh your supplier diversity plan, to identify performance metrics, review policies and processes, and more. We are thrilled to have Kathy Porter of Porter Brown Associates facilitate this series. Maybe you were a participant in our session last August with Kathy. She's just fabulous, has a wealth of expertise. She is a certified professional in supplier diversity and a small business expert with experience spanning nearly 2 decades in marketing, small business development, supplier diversity, and entrepreneurship. She draws on her years of experience working with corporations, higher education institutions, and the federal government to successfully support her clients. And in her capacity as supplier diversity for local municipalities and higher education institutions, and as a consultant for the federal government, she has successfully helped small businesses receive millions of dollars in contracts. So clearly the person we need for this initiative. We're really grateful for Kathy's experience and her lending that to us in the coming months. We're also offering a small business track with regards to supplier diversity and being contract ready. This will include our annual Meet the Buyers event and a matchmaking event as well. So be on the lookout for that this early fall. I will now turn it over to Christina Moffitt, our Director of Small Business Development for the partnership, to officially kick off the program.
Well, I'm so excited to have Jill Lippincott here. Jill is a dear friend, as well as works very closely with me and our small businesses to get them TSB ready. So as a team leader for the Innovative and Workforce team, Jill serves as the IEDA liaison to the Iowa Innovation Council, a think tank of Iowa leaders that recommends public policy and strategies to support innovation initiatives in bioscience, IT, advanced manufacturing, and industry sectors. IEDA's Innovation and Workforce team also connects entrepreneurs with innovation funding and business owners with resources, education materials, workforce training programs, apprenticeship programs, and internships. Through the Targeted Small Business Program, IEDA certifies businesses that are 51% or more owned by women, minorities, individuals with disabilities, and service-disabled veterans, and helps them leverage this certification for a greater business opportunity. Jill holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and a master's degree in public administration from the University of Colorado. Jill, we are so excited to have you here today, not only to teach us, but you live by this daily as we follow you along on social media. So I'll hand it over to you to take us away.
Well, thank you so much, Christina. I am very excited to be here as well, and just excited to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart. As Christina said, this is something that I've been doing for just over 5 years as I took over this role with IEDA. With the Targeted Small Business Program. And many of you may know that this program has had a number of years of evolution, and we'll get into that a little bit. But when we took it over, we really vowed to grow it, and it has grown over the last 5 years. We also have a number of programs here at IDA. Christina listed a few of them. We also have Iowa SourceLink for small businesses and Innovation Continuum funding for our entrepreneurs. So we do a lot of different things, and a lot of that overlaps and intersects, and it's just been fun to be able to connect our small businesses to all of the opportunities that are out there. And all of us, as Christina said, work together just to make sure that our businesses are aware of those opportunities, and we can make sure they are connected to the resources and have that support system underneath them as they grow their business. And that has never been more clear in this last year as we all work to support our small businesses in our state and in our local communities. And it was just wonderful to see everybody come together and all of the different initiatives that were built out of that. And I hope to see that continue over the long term. And so excited to talk about something, as I told Meg yesterday, I could talk about this all day. And I'm excited to hear what Kathy is talking about throughout the next few weeks as well, because this is something that, again, I'm very passionate about. So if I get excited and I start to talk really quickly, I'll try to calm down. And so I can slow down because I just get so animated about this. So again, just glad to be here. Want to just kind of start with an introduction to supplier diversity. I know that Kathy will be doing a deep dive on this, but really wanted just to level set of what supplier diversity is. And when we talk about this, we talk about this in terms of a term that you're hearing a lot of people talk about, but let's break it down a little bit. Supplier diversity is, or a diverse supplier is a business that's 51% or more owned and operated by an individual group that is traditionally a part of an underrepresented or underserved group. But when we talk about it, we often hear, that it's really becoming one of those things that is the right thing to do. And I know because I heard Kathy speak earlier last year, that it's much more beyond that. It really is about improving the bottom line for your company, and she will make the case for that in a very clear way. Mostly because it's widening that pool of potential suppliers, which can drive down your product quality and drive down your costs. But this is one thing that's really, I think, noticeable this last year. It can really make your supply chain resilient and agile. I worked in this last year on a manufacturing study, and certainly supply chain has become something that we have started to pay attention to, and will be paying attention to this next year even more so. Our supply chains, were really shaken up because of COVID, and still are. So I think when we look at having a diverse supply chain, it really isn't necessarily just about bottom line or the right thing to do, but it's also about business resiliency and looking at it that way as well. The other piece that I think we'll talk about and we can see is the economic impact in the communities that the companies serve. You can see the direct impact in the number of jobs that are created when we support our diverse businesses. And of course, we're all doing DEI within our organizations, and this is just an extension of that effort. And so a lot of times when I talk with companies, I talk about how they are doing DEI recruitment and retention, and in conversations and the language that they're using, but we don't talk about it when it comes to procurement. And so this should be a part of that as well. So again, excited for the work that Kathy will be bringing to you. She'll be going much more in depth in all of this. I'll be more focusing on our targeted small business program today and talking about how we utilize that program in the state. But it is a part of that overall shift to supplier diversity that we're all hearing about. So, like I said, just a few examples. I pulled these because while they are more national examples, they actually do have a bit of a focus on us locally. So this is an example from Target Supplier Diversity page. If you go to their website right now, you can see this. And if you notice, we actually have somebody that may be familiar to a few of you. The Black and Bold coffee company is here featured because they are one of the featured businesses for Target Supplier Diversity program. Black and Bold has just taken off. They were one of our targeted small businesses. They recently signed a partnership with the NBA, and I think it was just announced that they are part of Amazon's accelerator program as well. I mean, just a fabulous company that has really been a huge part of accessing various supplier diversity supply chains and being a part of those opportunities. So I love to see literally the Target commercials that feature one of our local Des Moines businesses. Another example that I really like is the Albertsons companies. They have done a number of things for social justice, but one element of that is the $1 million reserve fund that they've created for social justice and supplier diversity initiatives. And I pulled this because I really like this last quote from one of their leaders about courageous conversations and how they can lead to bold actions and push the societal change that we need. This is really important because when we talk supplier diversity, And I'm going to share an example about DMAC and what they've done at their organization. It's not just about creating the program. It's about creating the conversation about the why of the program, but also inviting change. And that's not just in the departments that do the purchasing. It's throughout an organization and understanding why supplier diversity is important throughout. So I keep this in mind as we talk about the why of supplier diversity and how to do that as you begin to think about bringing this to your organization. Another great example here is HP. HP puts out a report every year that includes notes about how well they have done with their supplier diversity program. So I invite each of you, I can share these links later to go and check it out. But a standout number that I noticed when I was reviewing this was that HP contributed $698 million in overall economic impact through their supplier diversity program. So you'll notice they have all of these other great numbers, but they also note economic impact, which I think is important because when we're talking about how many businesses were served or how many diverse businesses were utilized as a part of a supply chain, we also want to think about the impact that we're making in the communities. And that's a good metric to keep in mind because it is the ripple effect that is created when we create diverse supply chains. And one of those elements is the number, again, jobs created in your community or opportunities that those businesses are then able to create. And finally, an example a little bit more close to home. This is the city of Cedar Rapids. And by the way, this is our newsletter, quick plug for the Targeted Small Business newsletter that comes out quarterly. And we feature various entities that are doing great things with the Targeted Small Business Program, and the city of Cedar Rapids was one of them recently. They've created a program, and they are a government program, so they do require a competitive bidding process on their bidding opportunities. But they created a program where when targeted small businesses in Lynn County, in their county, bid on projects and they're within 2% of the bottom line or bottom price, they receive a preference. So they use the Targeted Small Business Program to build into their procurement program and allow a preference for those businesses. So it really helped create equity in their supply base, and just another great example of a way that you can utilize the Targeted Small Business Program as you're building out and considering how to build your diverse supply chain. So a number that I always love to start with and to shock people with is this $45 million number, because this is the number that the state of Iowa purchased from our targeted small businesses in FY 2020. That's just targeted small businesses. Now, what's interesting about this number is that these are, this was pre-COVID. And for some of you, you may know that we had a grant program that we put out during COVID for our targeted small businesses, which, and for those that became targeted small business certified, which helped increase our numbers quite a bit. We doubled the number of targeted small businesses. This number was when there was just 450 targeted small businesses in our directory. So there is a lot of capital going to the targeted small businesses in our state. And this program was created to do just that. So the Targeted Small Business Program, for those not familiar, is a state of Iowa program that certifies businesses that are 51% or more owned and operated by individuals who are women, individuals with minority status, service-disabled veterans, or individuals with disabilities. Those businesses must be located in the state of Iowa, operating for a profit. Doesn't mean that you're making revenue, just means you're not a nonprofit, and making an annual gross income of $4 million or less. The program was started in the 1980s as an attempt for the state of Iowa to give a leg up to businesses that we know historically have difficulties accessing capital and accessing networks. And it was recognized at that time that this was a way to identify those businesses through a certification process and then allow our state to reach out to them and to do business with them. So how do we do that? We do that a couple of different ways. Our businesses are all listed in a public directory. They are all given 2 days advance notice of state bidding opportunities that are given to the public. So when we put out a bidding opportunity, the public sees them on a certain date, but our TSBs see them 2 days in advance, because we know that most of our small businesses are small and they don't have departments that are working to put out responses to bids, of course. But in the last year, we also identified that sometimes it isn't about putting together a response to a bid. It's really just about doing business. And so our legislature increased the threshold for our targeted small businesses that they can direct purchase from our targeted small businesses, which means that if one of our state agencies has a need, has something they need to purchase, typically, and this is pulling back the curtains a little bit in the way that government works, but typically we can do that if it's under $5,000. We can go directly and make that purchase. For targeted small businesses, we can do that directly for under $25,000. Which was a great benefit for those businesses that, again, don't have time to respond to an RFP, but we can build relationships with our state buyers and they can become the direct source for those buyers when they need to purchase something. And so one of the things that we really go back to with our businesses and really coach them on is how to build relationship with our buyers, how to connect and make sure that our buyers know about them. And that's the other piece that we really try to do here at IEDA, is promote the businesses in our program. We can't promote their products or services for them, but we can promote the program, who these businesses are, and tell their stories. You know, the other thing that I think is helpful to know is that each state agency sets their supplier diversity goals, because that's essentially what this is. It's a supplier diversity program. Sometimes they meet their goals, sometimes they don't. But collectively, that $45 million was over the goal that all state agencies set for FY20. So a lot of what we do as well is looking at those goals that were set and evaluating them, and then working with agencies who are looking to find targeted small businesses who are needing to meet their goals a little bit better, and making sure that they have the resources to find the businesses. So sometimes I call it a bit of a chicken and an egg, because we'll hear from state buyers that I would love to purchase some TSBs, but I'm needing somebody who does this, and I can't find that in the directory. And so a lot of times when I'm out talking to businesses, they'll say, well, I would become certified, but I don't think anybody would buy my thing. And I am usually telling them, actually, I just met somebody the other day who would absolutely buy your thing, but you need to get certified because they were looking for you. So we really encourage businesses to become certified and be in the directory so that they can be found. So how do businesses become certified? They can do that by going to our site, iowaeda.com/TSB, and filling out an online application. Now, we do have a hard copy application as well, but this application can be done online. We do ask that some documentation be submitted, and part of the certification and benefit of the certification that we offer up to anybody who is considering creating a supplier diversity program and is looking for a third-party verification is that we are verifying if a business has licensing. So if, for instance, if they are a caterer or a restaurant, we're verifying that their licensing is up to date through the Department of Inspections and Appeals. If they're a contractor, we verify that they have a contractor's license. And we don't try to make this difficult for the business. These are documents that we hope that they have. But sometimes a lot of what we find is that we're letting them know in cases that they may not be aware of some of the licenses. I think Iowa has like 800 licenses that you have to have for various things. And so we actually have a business license information center here in-house at our state office. We have actually somebody staffing a phone line for that. So a lot of what we do, if they don't have the license, is actually informing them of also how to get it. So we make it not a punitive process. Sometimes it's back and forth about where to go to get it if they don't have it. We're also making sure that they're insured so that we can see that should something happen, they're bonded or they're insured. We're looking to make sure, again, verification that in addition to representing themselves as a targeted small business and 51% or more owned by that targeted group person that they've indicated, we look at their documentation to make sure that they are really represented by that individual. It's not just in name only, but that individual is making the decisions. Doesn't mean that we don't have businesses that are owned by individuals who are not targeted small business or targeted group persons or husband, wife. We're just looking to make sure, again, at the end of the day, that 51% threshold is met. So I always like to offer that up because there are certainly other verification entities out there. And we know that as companies build their supplier diversity programs, it's important to consider all of those. We just offer that you consider the targeted small business certification as well, because we do put a lot of review behind that. However, we also try to make this a quick process because we don't want businesses sitting on this. So typically, we try to do that whole process within about 5 to 7 days if they have all of their information. Because a lot of times what we find happens is that a business is responding to a bid, or somebody has asked them. In fact, I had this happened just the other day. A company had asked them, are you certified as a diverse supplier? And they said, I qualify, I just need to show them the verification, but I need to do it, this week. And so we said, no problem, we'll get you in the queue. We're not going to push you up ahead of others in the queue, but we can probably get that done. And we were able to do that. As long as the companies have all of that information, we're able to do that pretty quickly. So again, something I would just encourage you to consider as you build your diverse supply chain program is to look at the credentialing opportunities that are out there and what you might build into your program, including the state of Iowa's program. It's no cost to the businesses that apply. It's no cost to you to utilize our public directory. And the last piece is that it's updated. So the data that we have in our directory is updated every 2 years when our businesses reapply. So we're also verifying that they are still located in the state of Iowa. They haven't moved out of state. They're still owned by the individuals who have represented themselves as 51% owners. And so that means that, you're not going in there and seeing outdated data. And when they don't renew, they drop out of the database as well. So just a quick review of what that directory looks like. Like I said, we just updated this in the last year. There are multiple ways to search this site. So you can search by the targeted small business type if you're looking for minority business owners, if you're looking for women, if you're looking for specific locations, and if you're looking for product and service categories, you can look within those as well. I typically try to do the product and service description, which is where I just go in and use keywords. Because a lot of times we find that how the businesses represent themselves in their keywords is not necessarily how the buyers are searching for them using keywords. So one of the things that we offer is once a month, we do a webinar with our partners at Cirrus, which is a great partner that works with businesses doing government contracting. And we often feature a buyer, wink, wink, in those monthly webinars. If anybody is interested in being featured after you create your supplier diversity program. But we often coach them on how buyers are searching for them. And I can't tell you how many times I get a call from somebody who says, I'm searching the directory and here's what I'm looking for. And I can't find a business that does this. Most of the time, I can find a business or businesses to send to them. And it's because a business hasn't put something in their keyword product search description that I know the buyer is using to try to find them. And I can do kind of that matchup instead. So again, another benefit that you get when utilizing the TSB program as a part of your supplier diversity program is that you have somebody who can do kind of some of that matchmaking for you and help liaise between you and the businesses. And, a lot of times we're going back to the businesses and saying, and FYI, they were looking for you and they couldn't find you. So hint, 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 you may want to put this in your keyword search. So we do a lot of that coaching as well. Another just example of a business that has utilized our directory and Bottle and Bottega, great business downtown. You can see they've got their logo in here. You can find all sorts of information about the business once you click into them in the directory. We also have the ability to upload a capability statement or for businesses to upload a capability statement, which for those of you not familiar, that's kind of like your resume if you've ever done business in the government world. So they can tell you, we did work for the University of Iowa, or we did work for IEDA, and here was the project and various things. So you get a little bit of their background and they can share that with you right in our directory. So again, this was enhanced just in the last few years because we really want this to be a place that our businesses can go to promote what they're doing, who they are, and put a name or put more information out there and get some recognition. So speaking of recognition, one business I did want to call out because I love their story. This business is one that might be familiar to a few of you. This business was featured in a couple of our features in Urban Experience magazine. I think that's where this ad came from. This is Betty Garcia. And when we talk about the economic impact that supporting diverse businesses can have, I think about Betty, because Betty is one of those people who just has made such an effort to connect to her community, to all of the resources that are out there, and really work and improve her business. So disregard the blatant self-promotion about the TSB program here, as Betty is telling you all how wonderful it is. Because I'm going to talk about Betty. Betty, I got to know her as we were looking at her business and the things that she needed through the SBA loan program. She then attended an SBA roundtable and was just very vocal about sharing feedback with the SBA and really appreciated it. And I know that sometimes it can feel like we don't want feedback, but we absolutely do, because that is how our programs get better. And SBA isn't even our program, but it was helpful for me to sit in and hear what her thoughts were. I've also connected with Betty a few years later when she was working with Kemin. And I just thought it was so cool that she had this partnership with Kemin. Kemin was helping to make her product better. And this is one of the features that was shared on the news about, they were working with her to increase the quality of her products. Her products are in Fairway and in Hy-Vees. You can find them there. And this was such a great partnership and a great example of a large company working with a smaller manufacturer. Betty has also been a part of the World Food and Music Festival, and just one of those really great Des Moines companies that is giving back. And in fact, it was Tortilleria Sonora that was donating tortillas this last year during the COVID-19 outbreak. So when they recognized that there were food shortages and families were in need, they stepped up to the plate. And I just, again, love Betty's story. And every time I hear something about Betty, it's always wonderful. In fact, I was driving home one night and Iowa Public Radio was doing this story about the Spanish-speaking yoga teacher and how she was basically the only Spanish-speaking yoga teacher in the state of Iowa. And I'm realizing, I hear this voice and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this voice. And I'm realizing it's Betty Garcia. And I got off the road. I didn't text her while I was driving, I promise. But I got off the road and I sent a note to Betty and I said, is this you? Is this who they were featuring? And indeed it was. So just a great example of when we support our local businesses through our diverse supply chain, really what that means, what that turns around to. When we think again about HP's economic impact numbers, that's what that really looks like and what they're able to turn that into and give back to in their community. Another great example, I think, is Whitfield's Lawn and Garden. And I don't know if any of you saw the video that was circulating earlier this year, but Google featured Whitfield's. We use Whitfield's, by the way. They did a fabulous job cleaning up our yard, and they are awesome to work with. But Whitfield's is a small family-owned business. They have grown from 2 individuals to a large company of 12, and their story is wonderful. I don't have time to share it here today, but I encourage you to go check out the video. They were featured on Google, and very inspiring video. They were also a recent graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses cohort. So if any of you are familiar with that program, that's such an excellent program. And I'm sure that as a result of that program, we're going to see more from them, because everybody I know that has gone through that program, about a year later, you see some big impact thing that they're doing. So Whitfield's is pretty incredible as well. Another one of our targeted small businesses. And one of those businesses that when that video came out, I actually saw it posted from about 10 other people in the community first, because that's the impact that they have. They have so many other people that they touch and they reach, that their supporters were the ones sharing that video, because that's who they connect with. So with all of that, I actually want to revisit this really big number. And this number that I impressed you with right away and talked about how great we were at the state and this wonderful $45 million number. This number is really impressive, but like I said, some of our state agencies meet these goals and some of them don't. And the real story, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story, is that there was a time when IEDA itself did not meet its own targeted small business goal. I know, crazy. We were running the targeted small business program and not meeting our goal. So, I mean, this was one of the things, I'm being completely vulnerable here, right? And telling you that even we had room for improvement. And so when you start to think about creating your own supplier diversity program, just know that, again, as I think Meg said at the top, whether you're starting, whether you're growing, there's always just a place any of us can come to this. And it's okay to start small, to start somewhere. And so even if you're starting in a place of like, hey, we tried this and it didn't work, and you're looking to maybe revamp it, that's okay. Because what it took for us was to, again, be more intentional about it. I love that word. Really look at it in a way of how can we make sure that we are doing this from top to bottom. And so I think that's one of the things that we really had to make sure. You know, here we were running the targeted small business program, but what we realized is that our own team outside of the TSB program and department, the rest of our teams weren't aware of targeted small businesses. So we became more intentional about the outreach. We trained and we talked about this with everybody in our staff so that they understood and they knew that that was a priority first when going to engage in procurement. We also looked at everything from catering to consulting. So whatever we were needing, could we look to the directory first? Could we first look at the targeted small business directory, especially since we had increased that direct purchasing threshold from 5,000 to 25,000, so that we didn't have to go through a competitive bidding process that saved us time and saved our businesses time? Could we first go to that directory? And one of the things we found actually was that, and small plug here, we needed more restaurants in the targeted small business directory. So we've been working with Christina and that was right as COVID hit. So now on the other side of COVID, we're gonna do a big restaurant and catering push, because I will tell you at the state, we do a lot of meetings and we're gonna do a lot of in-person meetings where we're gonna need catering again. And we need more restaurants in the directory because that is an easy purchase. And you know, not a huge purchase, but we do it often enough, it becomes large over time. But consulting, we do a lot of consulting. We hire a lot of consultants at the state. So anytime that we had a purchase, again, we just made it intentional to go to the directory first. And we made this something that happened from the top down. So this wasn't just, you know, hey, this is happening. It was really something that our Director Durham, really emphasized throughout the organization. So again, I know that Kathy will be going intensely through all of these tips and more in depth on all of these. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of a few things, like I said, again, that we did as we put together a more intentional supplier diversity program. So again, I can't emphasize enough, invite change. I really love that quote of having those bold conversations, starting from all parts of your organization. And maybe it starts with your DEI team. Again, maybe that's where you go first to say, hey, I know that we're talking about this with all of the things that we're doing culturally within the organization. Can we add supplier diversity to that discussion as well, and make sure that that's a part of the work that we're doing also. Find those champions, whether you're a leader within your organization or you can find the support of your leaders. Make sure that you have that from the top down. Again, is this something that has to come from the champions, from the leaders within your organizations? And I will say, one really great example that we even use as the targeted small business program, we have champions within our program as well. So anytime we are doing a new initiative as a part of TSB, there are individuals, TSBs, that I reach out to and I will say, here's something we're thinking about doing. And if they don't champion it, I know that it is probably not a good idea. And if they do champion it, I know that they will bring other people along with them. So we're really using our businesses to help give us that feedback, but also to be the champion for the things that we're doing too. And then it's not just from the top down, but make sure even within your internal departments, again, I think this is where we first missed. You need to find those individual business unit and department advocates to make sure that they're all aware. So when an individual business unit has a procurement need, they know, or they have somebody within their team who is reminding them to make sure to check with a diverse supply chain directory or with any of the certification resources that you use. Be a relationship builder first. This, I think all of us probably follow this, but this is one of the things that we really, it's one of the codes that we live by at IEDA. It's something that is near and dear to Director Durham's heart, but it's about relationship first, right? So getting to know the vendors that you're working with. Maybe you're already working with diverse suppliers. Get to know them or bring them into some of the projects that you're developing. Maybe you're working with some diverse suppliers who aren't quite ready to scale. Start them with some smaller projects and build them into larger projects. There are ways to build companies and vendors into the work that you're doing if they're not quite ready to be at the scale that you need them to be. Of course, just like anything else that you're doing, setting goals and benchmarks. And again, I know that Kathy will get more in depth with all of that, so I'll leave that there, but obviously just being sure that you're evaluating it clearly. And know that benchmarks doesn't have to be about making sure that you are working with so many businesses, but it can also be about the outreach that you've had, or again, that economic impact. And finally, as I like to say, go outside your comfort zone. So I think all of us go to the conferences that we traditionally go to every year, and those are great. And we see very similar, same faces there every year. But those might not be the conferences that some of our vendors are attending, especially small business vendors who are wearing many hats and doing a lot of things. And so maybe it's going to different conferences, or maybe even better yet, and I'm teeing up my next slide here, host your own, which is what DMAC did. They had such a great conference this last year, but consider either or. There's just ways to maybe kind of do it a little bit differently. And again, going back to that top bullet, invite change into your process. So I know Julie is on the call, so heads up to Julie. I did give her a heads up that I was going to be talking about her today, but thank you, Julie, for letting me speak about DMAC's Diverse Vendor Networking Fair. This was such a great example of an organization specifically hosting a diverse networking fair. And one of the things that I'll also call out, and this really goes into kind of the training on supplier diversity listed here, is before they hosted their vendor networking fair, they actually created and hosted an internal training and brought in a couple of TSBs, brought in myself to talk about the Targeted Small Business Program, but really talked with their team about the why, because they recognize that if they're going to make a shift and create these goals and ask that their buyers do something differently, it's change management. And so as a part of that, they really needed to give them the why. Why should you switch the vendors that you're using, the people you've used for years? And in some cases, I mean, they had people, I think, in like their maintenance department that had used the same vendors for years and years. Why should you go with somebody else? And I really go back to that community impact. And Julie, again, commending you for just bringing in some TSBs and talking about what the difference that made to them when they work or receive those contracts and land those contracts, what that means to them and their business and how they can grow. Because I think that really helps culturally an organization understand this is about making an impact within the community that we all live in. So that would be one of my recommendations. If you already have a program, think about training internally on supplier diversity, focusing on continuous improvement. You can go so far as identifying explicit targets within specific departments or within specific communities, targeting groups that you want to spend within. Your CEO signing off on results. Principal is a great example of including their supplier diversity results in their end of year report. Creating a mentoring and development program for diverse suppliers. I think I saw that Michelle was on the call. Turner Construction, a big shout out to Turner. They have a great program, a great mentorship program that a lot of their subcontractors go through and learn about the type of work that Turner does, how to work with Turner, and they really develop those contractors into the types of vendors that they need to work with, so that once they do engage with them on a subcontracted basis, they're really ready to go. So I love that example, and I think that's something that, again, could be a part of a overall way of training and building out your network. And report your wins. So, again, going back to those metrics doesn't have to be about dollars to diverse suppliers, although I think that's great. It can be about the number of suppliers developed or engaged with, the savings to your company as a result of increasing competition within your supply chain. It can be about that external community impact, or maybe you've gone into new markets as a result. So think about creative ways to report those wins. And last, I see there's a few questions in the chat, so I'll leave a few minutes for questions, but I do want to talk a little bit about the additional benefits to the TSB certification, because this does go into, what to do as you're building out your program. And again, if you're considering the targeted small business program as a part of your supplier diversity initiative, what we can help you with. So we've talked about the search page, and of course, search is the search public portal is something that you can utilize, but also something that we do as a part of our program is invite our businesses into various networking events. We used to host these in person. We haven't done that quite as much, although we will be coming back in person this fall. And we've hosted these around the state. We'd love to have corporate sponsors if you'd love to do that. But we invite businesses of all kinds, mostly our targeted small businesses, but really they're not exclusive. So businesses come to network. And again, it goes back to, I would say I go to a number of networking events and I see the familiar faces, and it's great to see everybody there, but I love to bring individuals into a room who are not usually networking in those same circles. And so it's been great to connect our businesses together in that way. We also offer really great resources, whether it's resources that we can provide through Iowa SourceLink or resources that we connect our businesses to. So a lot of times, again, if a business comes through our certification program and they aren't quite ready to be certified because they're missing a license or they didn't know they had to have insurance, we're going to walk them through that. So we are able to direct them to other resources, whether it's through the SBDC or whether it's to Christina. There's so many businesses in Des Moines that I direct to Christina. She's such a great resource and just provides one-on-one counseling. I mean, I cannot overstate the fact that Christina is this hidden gem in Des Moines for our small business owners. So we're often just connectors in that way, and able to really help solve the problems. We like to say we don't tell anybody no, we just send them to where they need to go. And loans, we do have a low interest loan program, microloan program. So maybe you're working with a business and you've started working with them. Maybe you've ordered some of their product and you're looking to order more, but they need to scale and they don't have the funds to do so. We can work with them on a low interest loan to create the cash flow so they can begin to scale a little bit faster to meet your needs. That's something that those are totally out there for. Or maybe they need more equipment. That's exactly what it's for. It's for loans for eligible targeted small businesses. And then finally, if any of you create your supplier diversity program, engage with our targeted small businesses, please let us know. Because while we can't promote their products or services, we are promoting our businesses and who they are. Like you said, we like to talk about them. We like to share their stories on social. We like to buy from them personally. We live and breathe this every day. And we like to share all of that in our newsletter as well. So I'd encourage you to reach out and tell us about what you're doing so we can share your story too. And we'd be happy to talk with you more about it if you have other questions. Oh, it looks like you might be on mute, Meg.
You'd think 15 months later that that wouldn't happen, but here we are. Thank you, Jill, for that great information. We do have a question about the TSB listing, and is there a way that buyers are notified when a new business is listed and certified and added to that database?
Absolutely. So actually, I have a running list of monthly that I share TSBs that are added to the database with. So if you'd like to be added to that listserv, I'd be happy to. Just send me an email at jill.lippincott@iowaeda.com. I'll add you to that listserv, and then you get an email monthly of new buyers added.
Fantastic.
New vendors added.
Great. Other questions for Jill? Perhaps we're all just soaking it in. Well, I will drop a couple of links in the chat just to give folks who may have questions percolating out there a little more time to drop them in the chat, or you're also welcome to unmute and ask Jill directly. In the meantime, I am dropping in a few links that would, I think, be of help to you. First is a link to the next part of this diversity supplier series. So some information there, and registration is on that page. You'll see that Christina dropped Jill's email in there as well. So grab that. And then the next link is to our Buy Local page, which obviously links to our own membership directory, but it also links to the TSB directory and One Economy's Black Business directory. So we know a lot of you are looking to start and are anxious to start right now. So that is at least a bridge to get you to doing that. And then we hope you'll join us in July to start digging in more and really look at goals and measurements and how we really leverage this opportunity that we have with supplier diversity. This session has been recorded, and we will make it available. Go ahead, Jill.
I am just seeing one question from Jenny, and yes, Jenny, we would absolutely allow companies to reach out to businesses in our database. Their email and contact information is out there, so please do so. We would love that.
Thank you for catching that. Great. Okay, last call for questions. Okay, super. Again, thank you for your time, Jill, and expertise, and for all that you've done to advance the TSB program. We really appreciate that. And thanks to all of you for joining us this morning. Supplier diversity initiatives by committed corporations and governments can really spark small business growth, regional innovation, and collaboration, propelling inclusive economic growth in DSM USA. Thanks again for joining us this morning, and we look forward to being a partner with you in this journey. Have a great day.